Alright, so in our first section here, we're going to talk a little bit about problem-solving tips. And that's big because a large part of this course will be about problem solving. And it's always good to have some ideas of how to go about solving some problems if you don't know where to start. So, the big kind of 3 things you always do at the start: always read and understand your problem. This is good because it makes sure that you know what problem you're solving and what will be involved in solving that problem. So once you read it, once you know what you're asked to do, the next thing is to think about it and come up with a plan. So a lot of people kind of tackle problems right away. They start calculating things before they think too much. I think that's the wrong approach. I think a better approach is to come up with what you are going to do even before you do any calculations. I think that's very important. And once you come up with the plan, then carry it out. So once you carry out your plan, that's doing any calculations and solving for any unknowns that come up. Once you do that, the next thing you do is check that your answer makes sense. In some instances, you can check if you're absolutely correct. Maybe you're solving an equation, and you can just plug that value into the equation and see if it gets what you want. But just to see if it makes sense, if it makes sense with an estimation that you made earlier. And I think in this step, coming up with the plan or carrying out the plan, it's a good idea sometimes, if you can, to estimate the answer if appropriate. So let's do a little bit of an example here. So here's an example of a problem here. How many ways can you make 75 cents out of nickels, dimes, and quarters? So the first thing we're going to do is read it, which we just did, and then think about what is it asking us to do. Well, it's asking us, it says here, how many ways? So it's asking us to count the number of ways. Our answer should be the number of ways we can make 75 cents out of nickels, dimes, and quarters. So a good way of doing problems like this, if you think there's only going to be a finite number of ways and it's not going to be too big, maybe you can just list them all. So another problem-solving technique is, let's write it like this, technique is list in an orderly fashion. And I do want to stress this word, orderly. I think it's a bad idea just to kind of list anything you think of without having some sort of system, because it's very easy to miss some possibilities if you're just listing randomly. I think it's very important to make sure that you're doing it in some sort of order. And if we think about this, well, let's come up with a little bit of an estimate of the number of ways, or some sort of bound, maybe. Well, I know I can make 75 cents out of, say, all quarters, so that'll be 3 quarters, and then I can make it out of 15 nickels, for example. So it'll be between, the fewest number of coins I can use is 3, the largest number of coins I can use is 15. So my answer, I know that the fewest number of ways I can make coins, or make 75 cents, is 3 coins. The largest number I can make is with 15 coins. And if you think about it a little bit, it's impossible to make the same sum with nickels, dimes, and quarters with the same amount of coins 2 different ways. So each way is going to be unique. So I know my estimate is that the number of ways is going to be less than, well, I know that I can do it with 15 coins. I know I can do it with 3 coins. So I know that my answer has to be less than 12. So that's a good thing to note. All right. So let's devise a solution now. So I like to come up with the idea before I calculate absolutely anything. So once you get good at this, you don't have to write down your idea. But when you're starting, it's not a bad idea to kind of write down what you're going to do so you can refer to it. And so you can think about if your idea is a good one and how it'll be carried out. So in this case, the order that we're going to do it, let's do it with as many quarters as possible first, and then remove quarters as much as possible. So let's do it. The idea will be list always in order of most quarters to least quarters. And sometimes there'll be a tie in the number of quarters, of course. So let's do most quarters and then dimes as a secondary thing. And that'll be the way that we approach this. So whenever we replace a quarter, we'll replace it by as many dimes as possible, and we'll go like that. All right. So that's our idea. We know what we're going to do. So let's make our list. So we want to make 75 cents. So we'll have a quarter column, we'll have a dime column, and we'll have a nickel column. So this is 25 cents, dimes are 10 cents, nickels are 5 cents. And let's do it in order. So the most quarters we can have is, of course, 3. If we have 3 quarters, we already have 25 cents. We already have 75 cents. So we don't need any dimes or nickels. Okay, well, that's all the ways with 3 quarters. Let's do all the ways with 2 quarters now. Well, if we have 2 quarters, that's 50 cents. So let's put as many dimes in there as possible. Well, if we have 50 cents, well, we can use 2 dimes to make 70 cents. We can't use 3 because 3 would be too much. So we have 2 quarters, 2 dimes, and we need 1 nickel to make 75 cents. So I'll just write this once just to be clear. This is 2 times 25 cents plus 2 times 10 cents plus 1 times 5 cents equals 75 cents. So we're always looking for the number of quarters, dimes, and nickels to make 75 cents. Okay, so now let's do 2 quarters. And now we already did 2 dimes. Let's do 1 dime. So if we have 1 dime, well, that gives us 60 cents, which means we need 3 nickels. We traded out 1 dime for 2 nickels. So there's another way. We also need with no dimes. If we have no dimes, well, we're trading out, we can think of it as we're trading out this dime here for 2 more nickels. So we have 3 plus 2, which is 5 nickels in total now. So that's 50 cents, 2 times 25, plus another 25 cents, 5 times 5 cents. That gives us 75 cents. So we've done all the ways with 3 quarters. We've done all the ways with 2 quarters. Let's do all the ways with 1 quarter now. than this. So if we have 1/4, well, that's 25 cents. We can have 5 dimes. And if we have 5 dimes, well, that gives us exactly 75 cents. And if you think about what's going on here, the number of nickels, we're going to continually write it down, but we don't really need to. Because once we know the number of quarters and the number of dimes, well, the number of nickels is guaranteed. So that's not going to affect the number in our calculation, the number of ways. So that's kind of just along for the ride. So we have 1/4 and 5 dimes. We can have 1/4 and 4 dimes, which gives us another 2 nickels. 1/4, 3 dimes, and 4 nickels. 1/4, 2 dimes, and 6 nickels. And you can see that's 25 cents plus 20 cents is 45 cents, plus 6 nickels is 30 cents, so that's 25, plus 20 is 45, plus 30 is 75. So everything looks good. We keep going. 1/4, 1 dime, 8 nickels, and 1/4, no dimes, and 10 nickels. I noticed I said something incorrect earlier. And you can see here, sometimes you think something's going to be true, and then as you do an example, you find that it's not. But I said that there's no way to have the same number of coins making the same change, and that's incorrect. Because you can see here that here I have 2 quarters, 1 dime, and 3 nickels. That gives us 75 cents, 50, 60, 75. So does 1/4 and 5 dimes. That also gives us 75 cents. So what I said before wasn't entirely accurate, but that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes like this. If you think something is true and it's not, it's good to note that. And that's kind of cool. So maybe this won't be an upper bound, but it should be kind of a rough idea of what our answer will look like. If we get something wild like 50 ways, we know we'll be incorrect. And finally, let's do the number of, maybe I'll mark this off actually. This is the number with 1/4. And you can kind of see what's happening here. So all we're doing is, in each case, we're decreasing the number of dimes by 1. So let's keep going. We can see the pattern now. We notice a pattern. So this one should be quite easy. I'm just going to do it over here. 1/4, dimes, nickels. Here we're going to have 0 quarters, and we need 7 dimes and 1 nickel. And then we're going to decrease the number of dimes each time. And I'll fill in the number of nickels in a little bit. So we can start everywhere from 7 dimes all the way down to 0 dimes. And every dime that we trade in, we gain 2 nickels. So we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. And once you kind of notice that pattern, what's happening, the calculation becomes a lot easier. So here, this is no quarters. And you can see by being systematic, we're sure that we didn't miss a case. So let's count the number of ways. So we have 1 plus 3, that's 4, plus 6 is 10, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 18. So we have that the number of ways is 18. And again, I did make a mistake with one of the first things I said. With the estimate, I was a little bit off because I made an error saying that the number of coins kind of uniquely will determine how much change there is. But again, we saw an example of where this isn't true. Here's 6 coins making 75 cents. Here's a different 6 coins making 75 cents. Here's 10 coins making 75 cents. Here's another 10 coins making 75 cents. So we kind of saw the technique of listing in an orderly fashion here, and we also saw the technique of, once we kind of were working on the problem, we noticed some patterns, and those patterns made our life a little bit easier. We see that if we are listing like this, for every dime we decrease, well, the number of nickels increases by 2. So if you just go down, pick the most number of quarters. So here, let's say we already did 3, we already did 2. Let's say we're at 1, so we'll have 1 quarter. Figure out the most number of dimes, that's 5, and then just write down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Go all the way down. And then the number of nickels, well, that'll increase by 2 every time. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if you notice that pattern, it can avoid a lot of arithmetic and a lot of calculations and make your life a little bit easier. So that's our next technique. Notice patterns. And then you can notice patterns just by doing a few examples and seeing what happens. And if you can notice what's happening there, you can take advantage of that in your future calculations or in solving a problem in general.